if we could be more open to everybody in the classroom and every single person has a different nuance to the way that they learn, the things that they like, the things they don't like. If we were just more open in general to those things, the world would be a much nicer place. But the education setting in and above itself, you see it as the kids get older that they become more and more reserved on, shouting out answers because they're worried about being wrong. And the reality is that the only way to get the right answer is to have the wrong answer first and then learn the right answer and then teach it to somebody else.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Brighter Together podcast. My name is Janet Courtney, and my guest today is Rachel Bratter. Rachel is the Director of Special Services at Region School Unit 21 in Kennebunk, Maine. Rachel, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
So tell us a little bit, Rachel, about Region School Unit 21 and what you do there.
Well, we're a coastal Maine school district. Kennebunkport is part of our school district, and that's a really popular place for vacationing. We're about a half an hour from the New Hampshire border. I think it's about 6 hours to the Canadian border if you follow the coastline. Here in our school district, we have 6 school buildings. There's 4 elementary buildings, a middle and a high school. Under my sort of purview and supervision is the special education students, 504 students that are gifted and talented, and then our multi-language students also fall under me.
You have a big job.
I do. The person who was here before me was here for upwards of 25 years. So I'm the first transition. This is going to be year 2 at the end of July. So.
Well, congratulations to you. I'm sure that was big shoes to fill. Yeah, but I'm sure you're doing it with grace. I bet you are. So, okay. So, what do you think, with stepping into a position like that, what is your biggest challenge right now?
Well, I think that initially stepping into this, it was big shoes to fill. And so a lot of it was, building relationships. There's a lot of past practice here. Coming from working in New Hampshire in special education and then into Maine, there's some differences in the way that things are done. New Hampshire is very advanced in some areas, and Maine, for example, we in New Hampshire had years and years and years of preschools, and right now I am lifting to add preschool as a part of our FAPE obligation. The whole state of Maine has been tasked with this. By 2028, everyone has to have FAPE obligations covered for 3 and 4-year-olds. And so last year when I got here, we added a universal preschool classroom for 4-year-olds. So I have about 150 4-year-olds that are now in the building, anywhere from general education to special ed. There's some, more advanced students over there. We have a handful of students that English is a second language for them. And we're looking at joining the cohort. We're part of it right now. And starting in July, we'll start taking on FAPE responsibility for 3-year-olds. So that was a big, there's a big difference, but it's something that I really find value in. Those early interventions make all the difference when they roll into our classrooms. They really need that. And so getting this underway and in place, but you want to make sure that it's the right fit. And it's been revitalizing for my why do I love what I do. So it's been great.
Mm-hmm. So the 3 and 4 years olds, for those that don't know, are the ones that can kind of get lost, right? Because you have your 0 to 3 programs, and then you have kindergarten on an IEP. Will they be actually in, because you talk about FAPE, so they will actually be on an IEP?
They will.
Are you doing other programs as well? Like I know there's MTSS, RTI, stuff like that. How's that? How do you implement that?
Yep. So our 0 to 3 children will start the transition of like communicating with the school department when they're around 2 years, 3 months, 2 years, 6 months. We'll start having conversations with the family and with the agencies that they're working with currently to talk about what kinds of services and supports they may need, doing evaluations. At that age, it's more of a roundtable evaluation. You get all of the players there, your occupational therapists, your physical therapists, your speech paths. We have a social worker who's going to also help more so for the parents to help them sort of navigate this. It's not easy to know that your child is struggling, and there's a lot of resources out there, but if you don't know, you may not access something that could be really beneficial for your family. And so, we're talking about those kinds of things, and they will. 3-year-olds will have IEPs. Sort of the interesting caveat is that we are going to do push-in services if students or if these children are in childcare or educational settings somewhere else. So, for example, if mom and dad work and they go to the childcare center that's at their facility that they work at, we're going to try to send our services there using our own resources and possibly contracted service providers. And then when they turn 4, they're welcome to enroll. We are full day pre-K classroom. And so if they can enroll for some reason and they have to go again to a facility that maybe has morning care and after school care, which is, when parents are working full time, that can be a big hurdle for them. And again, pushing in those services. But then for families that maybe their children aren't participating in something like that, maybe they're home with other siblings, they'll have drop-in services available. So we'll have a similar to like a doctor's office, they'll be able to come to the door, they'll hand off their child to one of our providers, and then they'll receive their services, and then they'll come back and get them.
Gotcha. Interesting. That's really great. That's really great. The sooner the better, right? I'm a speech therapist, as we've talked about, and it's amazing. It's so important that kids are identified so much earlier, and they end up on an IEP a lot shorter time. Are you guys seeing that as well? Is there research that's being done to support that? I mean, I know there's been research, but
there's a lot of research out there. Not a proud moment, but Maine is the very last state to take on preschool. The Office of Civil Rights sort of came in and said, it's time that you guys pick this up. And so we're picking it up. And like I said, it's exciting. I'm excited. I've never seen so many applicants for the positions. It really is. There's real value in it. And for those of us that work in education, and we watch students that come in that have not had early intervention services struggle. They struggle academically, they struggle socially. Thinking about the speech children, if they can't communicate with their peers because they don't have that language piece and they don't have the ability to articulate those sounds, we're hindering their ability to have those, start building those, friendships and those relationships. As well as, it impacts reading and math. There's so much that those early interventions are required for. And so I don't know that we'll see it quite this quickly, but I would imagine in the next couple of years, we'll see a big difference. The 4-year-old program has been open for a while now. And we've seen a difference there that students that are receiving some of those early intervention speech, OT, PT services, by the time the 3-year reevaluation comes around, some of them are discharging and they're no longer needing special education supports and services. So, the goal is that we meet the kids where they're at. We provide them with the appropriate services. When they're this little, the expression is, hit them hard, get them as much service as you can when they're little, so that when they're older, they don't have those. And when they're little, they're not worried about judgment. So they're willing to do all the things that need to be done, right? And so,
For sure.
if you have a 4th grader who has, a lisp, they're embarrassed to have a speech pathologist come and sit with them in class, where the kindergartners are happily, bring you into their circle and have you play with them. So
yeah. My husband used to tease me. I started doing teletherapy in 2011, and he worked from home as well. And he's like, you play all day long. And I was like, I have the best job in the world because I do. I get to play with kids all day long. Give me any topic and I can turn it into a language or an articulation lesson because I'm really good at what I do. Yeah. So, but he's like, you just play. You just get paid to play. And I was like, heck yes, I do. I love it. And as a speech therapist, being able to see that impact and make that change in a child's life and see them to be successful, so it's what we as educators strive to do, is to help kids to be successful. And that's really, that's the joy. That's the joy of the job, right?
Yeah.
So how about staffing? How are you handling it? Sounds like you have it's not been a difficulty to get it staffed. Have you been successful in that area?
Well, we just posted the positions in March. Some of the positions we got a significant number of applicants for. Others, we're still, just like everybody else in the country, looking for folks. I got very lucky. I had a school psychologist who specializes in early childhood. That's her her niche thing. She loves that. She's been doing all of our referrals across our whole district for this past year. She's going to be doing some research, into the data of how many referrals we had this year, how many of them turned into IEPs, how many of them went to MTSS, those kinds of things. So we're starting to collect some of that data. I'm a numbers person. I worked in finance before I came into education. So, numbers drive a lot of things. Children aren't representative of numbers always. So you have to look at the whole child, but having some of those numbers, I think, helps the staff see, that the work that they're doing is really, it's making an impact and it's good work. And that makes a difference. But I have time. I mean, I wanted to get our slots open as fast as possible. We just hired a handful of case managers for folks that were retiring. So we're working our way through. It's this time of year is tricky with budget season and bringing on a preschool, and now we're trying to hire and close out the end of the school year. There's just we do a lot of transition meetings because we're bringing in kids from other facilities to come in for pre-K. It's busy. We're busy.
Yeah. A lot of moving parts. I bet you have a great supportive staff. And I think too, when you have those numbers, it makes boards happy and it makes superintendents happy. And, when you can see that there's a positive input, plus it makes parents happy. The children that are served, they get to do better. It's fantastic. I love that. So what would you say is one thing you would tell parents that they could do to encourage more learning at home? Because, so many of things have become put a tablet in front of them or whatever, and when we're talking about servicing the kids, what kinds of things are you encouraging parents to do to extend beyond what you're doing just in the classroom?
I mean, me personally, the contact that I have primarily with parents at this point would be if I put on some sort of a professional development or if they reach out to me. Typically, when a parent reaches out to someone in a director's role, it's not usually because they're happy.
True.
There are a few. There are a few that will reach out and say, thank you, we really appreciate it. I have gotten some really very heartfelt emails after board meetings where I've gotten up and talked about different things and, and had some, community backlash. And then folks who do support, the work that's happening they've written some nice emails. But as far as like my own sort of when I was case managing and, working my way through education, I think my biggest thing is that never underestimate the power of a drive in the car. No matter how old your child is, when you're riding in the car, when they're little, they should be looking out the window. They should be reading the signs. I remember as a kid, my sister and I asking to go to McDonald's, and my dad said, "We can't go unless you can spell it." And those kinds of things. And, there's a lot that happens. And as my own children, as they were getting older, we found the power of riding in the car as a great opportunity to have those hard conversations. I now have I have a 19 and a 16-year-old still at home, but I have two stepchildren that are 28 and 23. Give a shout out to them.
Absolutely.
And even that, it's a power of the ride in the car. So if you need to have a conversation about something or, talk about school, you're riding back and forth. It's an uninterrupted time for the most part that you can really focus on what your child needs. And it goes beyond the textbook. It's, what's around you, what's out there. They're inquisitive, answer their questions. Those are learning opportunities that we can't provide them that they can only get from their parents. And I take those opportunities. And I always say, even if you don't have the money, you can travel in your own yard. There's things out there. I remember my very first year, I had a student, we were talking about polar bears, and he had never seen a polar bear. He didn't know what I was talking about. And so we traveled on the computer. We took a tour and looked at polar bears, and he knew what a bear was, but he didn't know what a polar bear was. And it just kind of blew my mind that, something that I always just sort of took for granted, but your children don't know these things unless you introduce them. And we can't introduce everything. So the more you can help us, the more well-rounded your child will be.
Right. Yeah. The first teacher that they have is that parent, for sure. Yeah, for sure. Okay. So this is a question I ask most of my guests at the end of the podcast. This is my last question. If you could miraculously solve one challenge in the school, what would you want to solve?
Inclusion.
Okay.
Absolutely. I think One of the things that I was myself, I was identified when I was in 6th grade. And then, this was back in the 90s. I'll age myself a little bit. They were just starting to reintroduce special education back into the buildings. There was a huge stigmatism, and the stigmatism is there because of the inclusion piece. If everybody's always there all the time, then there is nothing different about what's happening, right? And so in this role, this is the first time I've ever worked with gifted and talented. And they also need inclusion, but they need it on the other end of the, it's special ed's on sort of one end, and inclusion is on the other. And then you have the GT. And so if the students are all included, the teachers, the general education teachers and the special education and the GT and multi-language, and everyone's working together, then the kids are getting the best of everything. It's a dream. I know it'll happen eventually, but we're working on it. And, it's hard sometimes to bring people along.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard to change the status quo, isn't it? And I agree with you. It's like somebody's only different if you point it out and make it seem different, not kids are so welcoming when they're little, and it's what society teaches them that gives them those attitudes sometimes. And if they don't have that, it never becomes an issue. So I think sometimes we as adults make issues out. My mom used to say, stop making a mountain out of a molehill,
Yeah, we say, is it a big problem or a little problem?
Yeah, exactly.
I think if we could be more open to everybody in the classroom, and every single person has a different nuance to the way that they learn, to the things that they like, the things they don't like. If we were just more open in general to those things, the world would be a much nicer place. But the education setting in and above itself, you see it as the kids get older, that they become more and more reserved on, shouting out answers because they're worried about being wrong. And the reality is that the only way to get the right answer is to have the wrong answer first, and then learn the right answer,
Right.
and then teach it to somebody else. And so, if we have that inclusion and we start when they're most accepting, which is, I have preschoolers out my window all day long, and they love everybody, and that's,
Yeah.
and they want to learn everything. Their world is just so exciting. And I think that's why I'm so excited about this preschool is watching kids just see things so differently it's amazing.
Yeah. Discover the world. Well, Rachel, thank you so much for your time. It was a great conversation. I'm excited for what you guys are doing. Where should people go if they want to learn more about you or what's going on at Region School Unit 21?
So to find out about, there's a little bit of a bio on me, and there's also our website. So it's www.rsu21.net. And on there, we have a video. Something unique about our school is that we currently are the only school district in Maine that has a female Black superintendent. She has since given her resignation. She will be leaving us, and she's from North Carolina, so she's going home. But she's got some great videos on there that can show some of our students kind of in action. We're a unified championship school, so there's stuff on there about that. So and the preschool. So just about anything, and there's beautiful pictures of our community.
Great. Thank you so much once again, Rachel. It's been a pleasure to speak with you, and I look forward to hopefully someday meeting you in the future.